might look this
Yep,
way.
it's
so
good.
it's sometimes hard to read this.
You can see it good. You just can't see like the top of the slide too much.
Lift it up.
Yeah, if you tilt it up a little. Yeah, that's
Oh, there we go, right
yeah.
there.
And get the upper body.
So I just want to welcome you guys to this finance class. This is important because, number one, I've been friends with David now for, I want to say, 4 or 5 years now.
Maybe more because COVID, remember? So
Yeah,
before COVID.
Before COVID.
So we're looking at like 8 years.
Yes.
At least 8 years.
It's been a while, and when Veterans Growing America was an idea, and I showcased it at Bunker Labs.
Mm-hmm. I was there for that.
Yeah, he was there for when we talked about what Veterans Growing America was going to be, and in the moment that it came time to sponsor our organization, David and Capital Bank was right there funding and supporting our dreams. And not only did he say yes, but he also gave me a class on this is what you need to do. These are the documents that you need to turn in. This is why you need these documents. And he walked me through the entire process. And it was brand new to me. I had no idea what I was doing as a nonprofit. But he walked me through the process and made sure that I had all of the information that I needed. And that's the type of guy that he is. He really cares, number one, about our veteran community, and he also cares about the clients that he works with. And he does a ton of things for the veteran community. If you go to his LinkedIn page, you'll see, you could probably go down his thing for years because it's, yeah,
11 years.
11 years of supporting veterans, military spouses, and the military connected community. And he called me, he said, hey, I have some information that I've been refining so people know exactly what to do in this time frame, and I want to share it. And I was like, okay. I was like, give me a date and we'll make it happen. And so we put this date together, and I just want to thank both of you guys for being here, sharing this information. And we're also recording this on YouTube, so our YouTube family out there will be able to use this information for those that weren't able to make it here. So we just moved into this store. This is the first event that we're having at the Veterans Growing America Marketplace. A little history about that. We were down the street 2 weeks ago. We got a phone call from Kimco saying, Lululemon bought your space.
Oh,
You gotta move, but we're gonna keep you in the shopping center, and I think the location that we have now is 10 times better than the location that we had before.
It's really good. It's
Yeah.
really good.
If you guys know, so this used to be a Capital One.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, this was a Capital One, and we turned it into a Veterans Growing America. The walls in there were yellow. There was a desk here, there was a desk there. In 2 weeks, we got this thing
Wow, that's amazing.
in operation. And the only reason why we were able to do that is because of our veteran community. When we called and said, hey, we need some help, we activated. All of my friends helped out. We used a veteran contracting company, and we also used a veteran sign company to be able to support in this. Before y'all leave, if y'all want to donate, because it wasn't cheap, we can use all the help that we can get to pay for this move. But without further ado, David, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to thank all of you for being here. The last time I did financial literacy, and this is individual financial literacy. Last time I was here was business financial literacy. So this is about you as an individual. So I'm going to be going through sort of everything that I wish I knew, but also when I presented this to the Marines at 8th and I in Washington, D.C., the barracks there, I learned a lot about what they were asking the questions. So when I did that, I thought I was going to talk to very young individuals, like 18 to 22, but I ended up talking to everybody 30 to 45. So it was a much different experience than I expected. So I really revamped the entire presentation. So I'm looking for your feedback afterwards in terms of any additional information that you would want to know. But I'm also on an individual basis, but I'm also wanting to know not only what you may not included, but also what you enjoyed too in terms of the information. because when I do presentations, I've been doing banking for 34 years, okay? So when I go in and I talk to people, I just assume they know what I know, okay? But they don't know what I know. And so some of the information you may already know, but be aware that a lot of other people may not know what I'm putting up here, and it's very valuable to them, okay? And everything I've put up here in the very beginning was what the sergeants were telling me that they wish they knew and didn't understand until they got out of the military, okay? So my goal is to give the information while they're in the military. So what you're gonna see here and why I need your feedback is I'll be talking to the US Army out of Maryland.
Oh.
And then I'll be talking to the reserves, I'm sorry, the National Guard, which makes up of the Navy and the Army,
Oh.
down in Richmond for their national conference. Okay? So your feedback's really important, and what I'm saying, and you allowing me to come, helps prepare me to do these very, very important transactions. Okay. So I wanted to start with the first slide. And I do want to say that my colleague Jerry, he's going to be talking about personal credit at the end, okay? And I do want to state that all the information I'm giving you today is not advice in terms of investing. It is simply the information of the products and services you can invest in. Because my tolerance level is very different than someone else's, right? Your tolerance level will be different than hers. So everybody has their own individual tolerance level. So I'm just telling you basically what the products are, because a lot of people do not know, okay? So in the very beginning, and I sort of came around and really started seriously looking into all of this about 7 or 8 years ago, okay? So I was in the career finance my whole life, and I was just allowing other people to invest my money for me. And then finally I said, I want to look at this stuff and see what am I investing. But the one great element that I did do is I did invest every 2 weeks for 34 years, okay? And if you do that, what is that going to do for you? It's going to take you out of survival mode and put you into your independence mode, okay? So you're empowered. I want to empower the younger generation. I want to empower even people who are starting to invest, that it makes a difference. And if you want to get out of survival mode, if you want to be independent mode, you can get there, because I did it, and my first salary was $15,400. Okay, I was in poverty level. I worked my way up, I got out of it, and I started saving constantly, starting at $15,400 all the way to where I am today. And by doing that, I'm an example of an individual that can now retire, and I am retiring next week on Wednesday.
Awesome! Congratulations!
So, but I will continue my passion with all the boards I'm on. I will continue my passion helping Danielle and whatever you need. And I do have the connections in terms of finance and philanthropic work. So everything will continue in terms of what is important. But I'm not in survival mode. I don't have to work every single day for a paycheck. But I did it over 34 years. It did not happen overnight. Okay. And so let's get to the start, is where it all started. Okay. This is the basic structure setup that I would recommend if you were coming into the military or if you were leaving the military. What I'm about to present, I was told they wish they knew, the sergeants, okay? So really, recommended accounts to have at a bank or a credit union. Like, you need a personal checking account, and then a savings account is more designed for what you need immediately in terms of savings, in terms of a particular goal, or a bill that you have to pay through the year. So for instance, when I was making a very small amount of money, I would save $50 a month into my savings account, and at the end of the year, I'd be able to pay my car insurance in one lump sum, okay? So it's just little implements of saving is really what you're trying to do with a personal savings account, okay? And other options are, you can have a certificate of deposit, usually starts with $1,000, if you wanted to save a little bit more aggressive, okay? And then you can open a retirement account when you get out, either a traditional or a Roth IRA. And does everybody know the difference between the traditional and the Roth?
Yes.
So the Roth, okay, the traditional, in the old days when I started out, you could put $2,000 into a traditional IRA, okay? And you could take that $2,000 off your taxes. So if I was making $15,400 and I put $2,000 into a traditional IRA, I could then take that off my earnings and it would only be taxed on $13,400, okay? So if you're making $20,000 a year and you put your $2,000 into your IRA, your tax bracket would be then brought down to $18,000, okay? That's a traditional. The Roth IRA, and the interest grows over your entire life, and you can take it out without penalty when you turn 59 and a half, but you have to pay taxes on whatever your tax bracket is on when you're 59 and a half towards the money that you're pulling out, okay? So everything is taxable. Does that make sense? Yeah, after you're 59 and a half. So you can start pulling the money out without taxes, okay? The difference with the Roth IRA is you can put the $2,000 in, but you're going to pay your $20,000 straight income. Okay, so if you're making $20,000, you put $2,000 in your Roth IRA, you're still going to pay the taxes on the $20,000. But the benefit is all of the interest or dividends that you make from the time you're 22 to the time you're 59 and a half are not taxed. Okay, so none of your money is going to be taxed. And there's other benefits too I could go into, but it would take too long. Okay, but that's the difference, the primary difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA. I invested in the traditional IRA my entire life. Okay, so when I start pulling money out, there really wasn't a Roth IRA when I started. Okay, but when you start taking money out, I'm going to have to pay taxes on whatever my tax bracket is. Okay. Next slide. And so I think you were talking about savings and being prepared when you transition out or when you start working, okay? People say, how much should I save in terms of an emergency, okay? So you want to start thinking about this 2 to 5 years out. I started thinking about my transition, which I'm about to do, because I'm still going to work, okay? I'm just transitioning similar to military from one job to another, okay? But 2 to 5 years out, is really when you have to start thinking about, I'm going to be leaving or I'm going to be transitioning. Because you need to start saving aggressively when you know you're going to be transitioning. Because if you wait, then you're not going to have any money. And what happens, what are we seeing in the Coast Guard, what am I seeing in the Army, is that individuals will then pull out their money from their IRA, all right, or their 401k type money, right? That's designed for retirement. It is not designed for transition, okay? So what I recommend is, thinking about 2 to 5 years out. I did 8 years out, okay? But 2 to 5 years out, you want to start thinking about starting to save towards your transition, okay? And it's designed to cover the expenses due to unemployment, because when you come out, most people do not have a job right away. Is that clear? Most people are looking. I'm on 2 military occupational transition boards. So I pretty much know how it goes when people coming out. I've been doing it for almost 11 years. So I know the challenges, I know the struggles that people with transition have. And what is a critical element of somebody's self-esteem? It's called occupational esteem. If you do not have occupational esteem, it can take you down a dark road. We were talking about suicide prevention. So a lot of my work that I do in terms of occupation and the information here is designed to make people feel good about themselves and being prepared when they leave. So they're ready and they understand what's going on and they're financially prepared so when they have a smoother transition and they're healthier, okay? They're not struggling. They're not upset with themselves. They're not thinking about, going down a dark road. So these is critical for people with regards to suicide prevention, okay? So you think about how much money should you have in the bank when you're doing a transition, okay? So people, and this is for working people, not people necessarily retiring like myself, but people working and are
So not necessarily just military.
No, this is life, yeah. But military helps. This is also for military, because military, it doesn't matter if you're in the military or out of the military, you need the same amount of money based on how long it takes to get a real job, okay? So if you're 18 to 25, it usually takes that typical group of people somewhere between 3 to 6 months to find employment, okay? So during their 2 to 5 year, they should be saving and targeting up to 3 to 6 months. As you get older, like if you're 25 to 40, okay, it might take you 6 to 12 months, okay? So if it's going to take you 6 to 12 months of expenses, then that's going to be something you want to think about probably 5 years out, okay? Because you want a much larger covering. Because if you get out and you're about 25, you might get a job faster, But if you're a 30 to 40-year-old, it might take you as much as 12 months to find the job that you really want to be in, okay? The other age group is 40 to 59. That can be anywhere from 12 to 24 months to get a job that's at the level of what you exiting at. So a 4-star general, and I've helped many of them, and 1, 2, 3, 4-star, you know, they tend to fall into that category, and they can take 6 to 12 to 24 months to find their new mission, okay? So it is not just the enlisted that come out, it's everybody. And saving would be critical. So these are the typical amounts of months of savings based on your age and based on the experience level you have and based on the type of job you want when you come out. If you do not have the funding of this, then you're going to take whatever job you can get. And that I see all the time. The average individual transitioning out of the military lasts in their first job for only 9 months, okay? So what are we doing at one group that I'm on the board of? We prepare them for 9 months and after. So we already know they're only going to last 9 months on the job. So we're waiting for them to come back to us after 9 months, and then we start the whole process over, okay? But, you know, if somebody was prepared in terms of this type of structure, they could be more patient with themselves and find their right calling. Okay, that's all I'm really saying here. You don't have to save a dime. You can come out and you can take whatever job. But you most likely are not going to last more than 9 months. You're going to be right back with me. We're going to start over, okay? And I don't want you to be in a bad financial position when that happens. So I'm trying to avoid you. I'm trying to empower you by giving you the data to be prepared, okay? Next slide. So emergency fund, a lot of people don't know what an emergency fund is. And this is what I was talking about, like not to consider in terms of your emergency fund, okay? The IRA, Roth IRA, government retirement plan, traditional 401k, funds for retirement are only to be tapped into dire situation. Planning years in advance will protect your security when you reach retirement age. So basically what I'm saying is if you prepare yourself for that or any kind of life transition, you won't have to tap into your IRA money, which we see every single cycle. There are 200,000 individuals transitioning out of the military every year. How many do you think did what I just did on page 1? Probably 5% maybe? Yeah. Is that good? Yeah. So this, I'm trying to avoid them to draft into this because the compounding of interest, the compounding of dividends over a lifetime is so much more valuable than that immediate need for cash, okay? It's so hard at the maturity level to understand that. It's very difficult, okay? Yeah. But people, it's my job to inform you that it is more valuable because the money will be worth so much more when you reach 59 and a half or if you reach 70 and a half if you want to work all the way to that point, okay? So this is the reason you do not want to have an emergency account be your 401k, okay, or your government plan now, okay? So I just wanted to make sure I stress that because this is all we have now. The pensions, I believe, in the military are going away, right? Mm-hmm. So all they have is their IRA money. All they have is the contributions that they get from the U.S. government. All the civilians have is our 401k and what we do in terms of investments through our loans, right? So this becomes so critical in terms of when you get older. If you want to be self-reliant, if you want to be independent, if you want to make your own choices, you must invest. And you must be patient with yourself. And you must pay yourself first, okay? And this is why I want to stress not to touch your 401k until you reach 59 and a half at the earliest. Because then you're in that bracket of whatever your income is at 59 and a half, okay? Emergency fund goal can be reached over time. So a lot of the sergeants and individuals that came to me and wanted to understand what an emergency fund, and that's why the first slide is important, right? Because you save for the things that you want, like an iPhone or even an automobile to a certain extent, okay? And you will get to those goals. What I've found is people will get, if they want an iPhone Pro, they'll get their iPhone Pro, right? It just doesn't matter, they're gonna get it, right? So you save in the money market account generally, right? Then you have an emergency fund. An emergency fund, what is the statistic? 55% of people can't make it through to one paycheck, okay? I think it's gone up to 55. At one time it was like 52%. So if you can't afford to lose one paycheck, how are you going to have financial independence, right? How are you going to find it if you're if you're saving in a 401k and you understand the importance of that and you have to pull it, wouldn't that make you feel bad? Wouldn't that affect your self-esteem? So what do we have to do? We have to establish an emergency account. An emergency account is designed for unemployment, or if a horrible tragedy happened, or if you got injured and you lost your job, all those sort of things, right? And again, the emergency fund goes back to the 3, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, okay? Emergency fund, take your monthly earning and then you multiply your goal. So let's say you're making $2,500 every 2 weeks, then you would say $5,000 a month. And then based on how many months you need that I showed in the earlier slide, either 6 months, 12 months, 24, your goal will be to accumulate that type of money. A lot of people think that they have to get the emergency account immediately. You do not. It took me probably at least 15 to 20 years to establish my emergency account to become a retirement immediate savings account, okay? But I was able to save, and I knew what I was doing, and I understood the importance of it. If I wanted to leave, I had to have those months, right? So I always was thinking, do I have the months, do I have the months? And so that's what you need to think, but you take your time on your emergency account. Avoid debt, it will give you peace of mind, and that peace of mind is priceless. If you know you have enough account and emergency fund to cover your expenses for 6 months, 12 months, it'll give you that peace of mind. In terms of, you want to avoid accumulating debt when you know you're going to be transitioning in a job search. You don't want to drive up your debt, because most of your funding will go paying that down and not looking for a new job and or not taking care of yourself. And then all long-term investment options are on the table. In other words, you can take your emergency account does not have to be a savings account. It can be a mutual fund, or it can be whatever you want it to be. It could be buying stock, Apple stock, or whatever you find is what you want to invest in. It doesn't have to be a savings account in the bank. Right. So a lot of military think that it's a savings account in the bank, and they don't even think about investing, because this is a long-term investing that you're doing over time to reach a certain goal. Okay. The hardest thing about savings is saving. Is starting the process of saving. Okay. Because I try helping so many different people throughout the nation in terms of how to start saving, but they just don't have the culture. They don't have the training or the family background. Everything is spend, right? And you have to sort of learn how to save. And once you start learning how to save, once you start reaching and getting toward your goal, you're going to want to save more to get there. Okay? You're empowering yourself. Okay? And my goal, today and into the future, is to empower people like yourselves to save in order to get to your self-independence and get out of survival mode. Okay? I really want to try teaching, and it's a process. For about probably 92 of Americans, it's a process. It isn't just something that happens overnight. Okay. So the next lesson is how do you market and how it aligns to mutual funds. So I just started looking into this recently. Okay, so what is the Dow Industrial? I didn't even think of what in the world is the Dow Industrial. I was asked this by the Marines, and my answer was not perfect. It was sort of like this, but not exactly. So the Dow Jones, you always hear the Dow Jones. Just today, the Dow Jones went up, I think, 600 points, right? It went up a lot, okay? And what is the Dow Jones? Stock market index tracks of the 30 large blue chip U.S. companies. And the Dow Jones is interesting because it looks across all the sectors. So you're looking at oil and gas and what is that, electric utilities, I was trying to say. They'll look at utilities, they'll look at pharmaceutical, they'll look at tech, they'll look at all the different industries, retail. They'll look at these industries and they'll take the very top ones out, right? So when you hear it goes up, that's a general, and pharmaceuticals is a general indication that the whole market is going up in terms of all these different sectors, okay? They don't just look at one particular sector, all right? So when the Dow Jones is going up, that's a really good indication that the entire market, the entire industries throughout the nation are pretty healthy, okay? So the last 2 days we saw it go way up because of the interest rates cut. And that shows that the investors are very confident that we're moving forward in terms of businesses, okay? Doesn't mean the individual is doing any better, but the businesses. And how do you do better? You understand that so you can invest, right? And so it's serving as a snapshot of overall stock market and economy. So that is a really special thing to watch. And a lot of the mutual funds are tied to the Dow, okay? And that's what I'll talk about next. And I do want to say, like, I'm not in any way encouraging what you invest in because of everybody has their own individual tolerance level. Okay, I'm just letting you know what you're investing in. If you looked at the Dow Jones and you were investing, okay, and you saw it recently, the Dow Jones tends to be tied to large cap mutual funds. They're called large cap, and they're also called large cap growth funds. And so growth funds tend to have more of the topper companies that are more aggressive. The large cap mutual fund can invest in any business that they feel is a large cap outside of the S&P 500. Okay, so Exxon, for instance, is no longer, I believe, in the S&P 500, but that could be a utility that a mutual fund investor wants to invest in rather than Chevron, for instance. Okay, so they can look at Exxon, they can look at Chevron, right? Which one do I like? And so different investors will pick a different group within the category. Okay, the Dow Jones is picking whatever they want to pick in terms of it going up as an indication that not only Exxon will go up, but also Chevron. Right, the level is different, and the investors have to choose which one is best. Okay, and then funds are invested in all industries based on individual and analyst analysis. So you can have you can have 3 to 5 large cap funds and large cap growth funds, but they're all different in terms of the individual investor and how he's investing. So sometimes even you'll see the Dow Jones go up 100 or 120 points, but your particular large cap fund or large cap growth fund only goes up a few dollars, and then the next day you see it go 50, but then it goes way up. So it's all based on what people are investing in. So when you look at different investments in terms of mutual funds, and you see large cap growth funds, you know that mostly will follow the Dow Industrial. Okay, that was my point. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Next slide. So the S&P 500, okay, you'll see that index, right? And what does that index? That index tracks the 500 largest traded companies. Okay, well as individual investors know long to establish a business long term, and so there'll be companies in the S&P 500 that go in and out. Exxon is an example, fell out, right? Salesforce came up, okay? So there's all sorts of different timing of S&P 500. Exxon could become right back up, right? So it's the 500, and they're investing in those long term, and you know what you know with the S&P 500. You know you're investing in the biggest companies in America, in the world, right? You know that they're investing in companies that are generating significant revenues, and the stock price has to do with their performance, right? If they do well, that doesn't take away the fact that they're making lots of revenue. Okay, just the stock price is based on them hitting their targets. It's not necessarily based on how well they do. Even when Wells Fargo was having trouble back in 2008, they were still generating billions of dollars of revenue. It's just their spreadsheet was going way down because of the housing crisis, right? But that didn't stop the money flow. And now they've recovered fully, I can say pretty much, and now their stock is doing very, very well. So over time, they'll regain and get back. So the S&P 500, I just want to let you know what it was. It's the top 500 companies in your investing. If you see an S&P 500 index fund, you will know what you're investing in. You're investing in the top 500 companies, okay? NASDAQ, you'll see that pop up, you know, what's the NASDAQ, right? It's the first electronically traded exchange. It focuses on technology companies and tracks majority of these businesses. So the bank that I work with, Capital Bank, for another few days, is a financial tech bank, okay? So we're traded out of the NASDAQ, okay? Because we're a technical bank, okay? Mutual funds, I think it's, what is it, QQQ? There's certain mutual funds that just specialize in the NASDAQ and technology. And so if you invest in that, you know that you can follow the NASDAQ on your phone if you have the app where it shows NASDAQ, S&P 500, Dow Jones, and you'll be able to know what you're investing in and how you're doing. Like if I see the S&P 500 go up and I have an S&P 500 mutual fund, that's going to go up, right? If I see the Dow go up, I know, well, it's probably going to affect in a good way, my large cap and large cap growth fund. So it's just all tied. You know where your money's being tied into. So you can, based on your own tolerance level, go to each one and say, this is what I'll invest in based on the performance that you feel comfortable with. If you believe in AI, if you believe in these different companies, then you know, this is the company that deals with, this is the tracking, right? So you can go to buy a mutual fund that just tracks this. If you believe and you want more conservative type investments long term and you want to invest in all the different industries, you can go to the large cap fund or large cap growth fund. If you know you want to be in the biggest companies in the world, right, you can just go to the S&P 500 and just invest that your entire life, right? So you're empowered of who you want to invest in based on your own tolerance level. Okay, make sense? Mm-hmm. So empower yourself, because I did it 7 years ago and my portfolio is doing much better. Oh. Because I just trusted the guys to invest my money, right? I didn't even think of all of this. I just thought of all of this like 7, 8 years ago. Okay, if I just did that, how do I assume everybody else is doing it? So, all right, but that's so the Russell 2000, you will see that as an option. Okay. It's another index, just like the Dow, just like the NASDAQ, just like S&P 500. They're called mid-cap funds, okay? And you want to follow the Russell 2000. List the strongest companies based on earning. This is $300 million to $2 billion, okay, in net income. And there are specialized mutual funds. If you wanted to really get aggressive, right, and you want a real big growth, then you could start investing in the smaller companies that are making $300 to $2 billion a year, and there are special mutual funds designed just for that. So you would have to go to your investment rep and say, tell me about the Russell 2000 and specific mutual funds that specialize in that. Okay, so you're empowered to talk to your people about whatever index, whatever mutual funds are tied to those certain indexes. Okay, and if you empower yourself, then you'll increase your revenue based on your own tolerance level. Okay, some people do not have a high tolerance level. I have a very high tolerance level. Okay, but some people do not. So you want to figure it out. What's comfortable with you, and then go work with your investment guy and make it happen for yourself. Because you will see increases because you're in the investments that you feel confident with. Okay? I didn't even know about the Russell 2000. I didn't know the levels until I looked at it. Okay, so this is all this information you can pull yourself too. Okay, I'm just bringing it to you now. Okay, mid cap S&P mid cap 400 they have too. Okay, so this is 2 billion to 10 billion. Very interesting investment category. Okay, and it's again, you're looking into what the S&P considers the top 400 companies in that range. You're getting into like trusts and specialized accounts here, okay? But investment representatives, whether it's Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley or any of these larger groups, can guide you. But you need to be firm with them that you understand what you're investing in, because they tend to be more conservative, okay? So you want to make sure that you do your education yourself to understand what you're investing in, okay? But if you do hear about the S&P Mid-Cap 400, you know what it is, right? Mid-Cap, you'll see a lot of mid-cap investment mutual funds. You're investing mostly in probably the S&P 400, but you have to ask that question. If you don't ask it, you won't know, okay? It could be anything that they're investing in that range of 2 to 10 billion in annual receipts. So individual stock is something that I am very interested in, but I've only invested in individual stock in the company that I work for, okay? But the potential of it going up in terms of and buying it consistently is high based on the industry and based on the situation of the business, right? So it requires a brokerage account. So I have to have a brokerage account to hold. Right now, the brokerage account is holding my stock, and then I have to have a brokerage account at a major firm like a Morgan Stanley or Merrill Lynch to execute and sell it. Okay, so there's a holding, and then there's the selling of it. hold stocks that one may purchase and believe in. So I believe in the company that I'm working for right now long term. So I'm absolutely fine buying as much as I can of it based on my stock options, okay? So you want to, everybody says, well, what stock should I buy in? What do you believe in? What do you buy yourself? I buy Apple phone, right? So I wouldn't hesitate to buy Apple stock. I wouldn't hesitate to buy Microsoft. So there are companies that you may believe in. You may believe in Disney. You may believe in other companies. And this type of financial literacy, in terms of individual stock, is what's being pushed right now in terms of the $1,000 they're considering giving to every newborn baby, right? The parents are going to have the ability to pick either one of the mutual funds I was talking about earlier, or an individual stock, or whatever they're comfortable with based on their tolerance level, right? But how are they going to decide that if they don't know that what these things invest in, right? So I'm going to be doing a lot of work on terms of financial literacy throughout the nation to try to give this information that I'm giving you today. Because you guys, people need to be empowered to know what these different types of accounts are investing in. Okay. But individual stocks, anybody have a question about that? So yeah, I'll go back if you'd like. The advantage of individual stock. Okay, so the potential is long-term growth can be very aggressive. So in a mutual fund, you're investing in like 100 different stocks, and they can go up and down based on all the different situations of each stock. Especially when you're doing a Dow, like a large cap fund. You have a large portfolio that can go up and down, and often it will stay consistent and be small growth. Where if you buy 1,000 shares, or let's just say 10,000 shares at $10 of a certain company, right? And then that $10 goes to $100, right? You're looking at $1 million, right? So the potential of it growth, is very, very strong in the individual stock. They showed a statistic. It was if you invested with Nvidia, if you invested in Nvidia with $1,000 when way back about 15, 17, it would be worth over $1 million. Right?
Yep.
Okay, just $1,000, not 10,000, right? So the potential is very high. You also can get quarterly and semi-dividends, which are lucrative. So you get a check every month from the company. AT&T is known for that. Their stock, for what I know, their stock doesn't go up and down very much, but they have a wonderful dividend. Okay, so people buy a lot of that particular stock just for the dividend. Cash out. Your cash bracket, if you buy and sell, this is why I don't believe in day trading. Okay, like your cash out 1 year, you have to pay in the highest bracket. If you buy a stock one day and sell it the next, okay, you're going to pay the highest tax bracket, for that earnings, 30-something%. Right? So, but if you hold it for a year, then your capital gains will only be 15%. So you can hold a stock. Let's say you buy 10,000 for $10, and it goes to 100. You have $1 million. You're only going to be taxed on the gains up to $1 million. Okay, at a 15% level, not a 35% level. Okay, or 30%. So it's designed. All stock is designed to hold for at least a year. If you buy Apple, you buy Microsoft, hold it for a year. A lot of people talk about Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin international equalizer on U.S. dollars. So somebody who owns a Bitcoin in Colombia and somebody who owns a Bitcoin in the Philippines is just like you owning a Bitcoin here. Okay, it's a great equalizer of the U.S. dollar. So that's why you see it always become pretty strong, because people want that U.S. dollar equivalent, right? And so right now I think it's like 92,000 today, right? So $92,000 in Colombia or in Philippines is worth a lot more money than here in Woodbridge, Virginia, right?
Right.
So it's a powerful equalizer, and so that's what I like about it. Okay. And also the security is crazy encrypted. Some of the best technology in the world is protecting your money. It's also based on the product international, creating a higher demand. So if everybody wants a Bitcoin in these other countries, because there's always wealth concentrated in different areas of the world, right? So that concentration of wealth may want the Bitcoin in order to have an equalizer of American currency. So they're buying it, and that drives the price up here in the United States, right? potential issues, it's not collateralized, there's no collateralization. Okay, so when inflation went up, remember when inflation went really high during COVID, and you could have bought a Bitcoin for, I think it went down to 15,000, it went way down, right? So now we're at 92, but at the time, inflation, everybody panicked, there's no collateralization of Bitcoin, so it went way down. So you have to understand that, that this can be a volatile product based on international disaster, okay? So if there was a major war, for instance, you know, that Bitcoin, right, there's no collateralization of it, other than people buying it, right? It's a little, that's the volatility that you need to understand. General knowledge could be considered weak. Like I am not interested in the product, so I have no idea how you purchase it. I have no idea how you disperse it. Okay. If I owned a Bitcoin, how in the world am I going to get my money out of Bitcoin? I have no idea. Okay, so I would have to like learn. It's not like a bank account where you have an ATM card, you go take it out, right? I have no idea how to disperse it. And there was one individual, a famous basketball player, bought a lot of Bitcoin, so it's worth a ton of money, right? But he has no idea what the password is. So the encrypted system, I don't know how he's going to get it, right? But I think you know the number, and I think you know, if you're rich and famous, maybe you can work it out.
It's an
Somebody's gonna figure
exchange.
it out.
It's just like an exchange, like your.
But if it was me or you, and we're trying to find a Bitcoin, and we don't, you know, it's just. I think you need to really educate yourself on the stuff that I don't know in Bitcoin. Okay. Also educate yourself more on the risk of Bitcoin in terms of the inflation issue. I'm not buying this personally, but that doesn't mean it's not a good investment. It just means I don't understand it. I have not done my research on it. Therefore, I don't feel comfortable yet buying it. Okay, but a lot of people obviously are buying it, and its value has gone way up since COVID. Okay. The Bitcoin that's similar to any other coin product you hear out there. Okay, it's very similar information. So what people struggle with, and why do people not invest, right? They struggle with the idea they're going to lose all their money. A young man just said that to their dad, because the dad wants me to talk to him and have him start investing, right? But the kid, the young guy's saying, I don't want to invest because I don't want to lose all my money. You know, so you have to understand like the history of the stock market, the history of these funds, and know what you're investing in first, right? Before you just make a general statement. But there is times, and there was a recent time when Donald Trump declared the tariffs, right? The stock market went way down to like 42,000, I think. It's right now, just hit all-time high, 48.5 today, or maybe a little bit higher, okay? But the risk is every once in a while there'll be a 10 to 20% drop. You'll see. And what people are doing is like when these gains happen the last 2 days of almost 1,000 points, investors are going to say, okay, we just made a ton of money, let's sell, right? And so it's natural that it's going to go up and down and up and down. But I always like looking at it when it peaks because I know what the threshold is at that level, okay? So that's one risk. International crises could affect price, of course, right? We saw that with COVID-19. But what is after COVID-19 and where are we now? We're at all-time highs in the stock market. So when to take profits, when to hold. This is very difficult, okay, even for myself, is when do you sell a mutual fund, right? You're putting money in it all the time, right? When do you even sell it, right? So you have to be really educated on the different levels of what I went over in the beginning. What is the Dow? What is the NASDAQ? What is Russell 2000? Right? Knowing all of these things will help you make your own determination of when you want to sell it. You know, people who in the finance industry always want to have the money in there, right? They never want you to sell it. Right? But you have to really take ownership of your own money and execute when you think it is right. Okay? You have to execute when you want to. For me, it's easier to save because I'm a saver, not a spender. But for people who are a spender and not a saver, knowing when they do it is really critical. Okay, so know when to sell, and just educate yourself on what you have. Okay, and what should I invest in? Everybody says that. What should I invest in? Again, knowing what you're investing in based on the different indexes is very critical in terms of your comfort level. Okay, what do I want to invest in? If you believe in AI, you believe in this technology move, you believe in all that. There you have an index that tells you right there. You can seek out the mutual funds that seek that particular index, right? If you're more conservative, you could pick different ones, right? But it's all designed for you. But if you save your whole life, you're going to be in a very, very strong position, okay? So bond funds, people know bond funds. So bond funds are tax-free income. It is not only designed for retirement, but you'll hear a lot of it when you get into retirement, because you can invest all the money that you earned on a mutual fund. You can then shift it to a bond fund, right? And not pay taxes within an IRA portfolio. But then you can start receiving dividend checks from the state or from the federal government, and that money will not be taxed. So if you had a 4% bond fund and you had $1 million, you get $40,000 a year, okay? And that would be not taxed, okay? And so that could be implemented and combined with your Social Security or your pension, okay? So bond funds can be very effective. The issue, bond funds, when they get called, so if you have a mutual fund bond fund, because they have mutual funds that are bond funds, right? But within the mutual fund bond fund, one of the bonds could be called within that mutual fund bond, and so the value that you're getting in terms of return could go down because the government is saying, we don't want to pay 5% anymore on this bond, we want to pay 2%. Okay, so your bond fund value and what you're getting monthly could go down based on that. So that is the risk of the bond fund.
But you still get money.
You still get money every month. Every month you get money, and it's tax free, whether it's in a IRA account or individually owned. Okay, you're investing in your community. You're investing in projects in the nation that are building bridges, things like that. Okay, and so that's they're going to give you free income from that. Okay, it's not going to be as high a return potentially as the other products we talked about, but that's the advantage. Okay. What is good debt? So there's good debt is like a home purchase, okay, because you can write your interest off at the end of the year up to a certain level, and then you don't pay capital gains up to $250,000 after sale. So if you buy a house for $100,000, you can sell it up to $350,000. You're not going to pay any taxes, okay? If you buy a house for $100,000 and it goes to $1 million, then you'll pay taxes from $350,000, and that's capital gains, which is 15%. Automobile, one must get around to be necessary. That's okay. They have a credit card, builds unsecured credit history. Everybody, and that helps your credit score. And Jerry will talk more about that. And then items wanted is important because avoid conflict, peace of mind, like your cell phone, washer, dryer, engagement ring. These are things you need to save for items that you want, that you feel are necessary in your life. It's absolutely fine.
Can you repeat the part about the no capital gains? You said if you use it in if you move it what?
You said 300,000.
Can you give that example again?
Yeah, when you buy a house, and if you buy, I'm just using $100,000 because it's easy.
Right.
And you can have a gain of $250,000 up to $350,000.
Right.
Okay, but if you sell the house for $400,000, you're gonna have to pay capital gains on the $50,000. A lot of people don't know that. I just recently. I bought in 2001, so if I ever sell, I just was curious. So
I never knew the thresholds.
I didn't either. I learned this from a CPA recently.
The difference if you're married.
Yeah, it could be different when you're married.
It's more.
Yeah, it's probably more. So this was my own individual.
Okay.
And so I just know, knowing that there's a capital gain threshold is what's important. Thanks for the married thing. Yes, that would probably be more.
Yeah.
Bad debt is when it's very individualized what you would consider bad debt. Some people think unneeded purchases, items purchases that take you out of the ability to repay within 90 days. That can get you into trouble, okay? Because then you're accumulating debt on top of debt. Placing all expenses on the credit card without budgeting, repay based on your salary. Okay? That just means living beyond your needs. Right? And then overextending one's means, again, it's tied to this statement. No, go forward. Is there anything else?
Yep.
Oh, here I just want to give you some facts. all humans age, but 52% of Americans cannot afford. So that percentage may have gone up a couple percentage. Americans can afford an unexpected bills over 2 weeks of pay. And so I say pay yourself first. Money working for you 35 years will take care of your needs. Most work entire life to get out of survival mode. And so I really only think about 2% of Americans are not in survival. Okay. Most people do not inherit, $100 million like a Rockefeller.
Right.
Most people do not win the lottery. Most people do not start a business where they're making buco money at the age of 30, right? Usually that big money comes through a lifetime of work, right? So occupational scene becomes financially independent after retirement. We were talking about earlier suicide prevention. One problem with the Vietnam veterans is that they cannot afford their bills, therefore they fall into depression after they've retired, okay? And that depression leads them to self-harm, okay? So survival mode is, it can become your independence financially when you retire. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm trying to push to start saving as soon as possible. If you haven't started, start, okay? Because you want to be in independence mode, not survival mode your whole life, okay? I'm talking to people right now that are aged in the 50s, and they think they're going to have to work until they're 70. Well, they probably are based on their portfolio, right? And their needs financially. And so I don't want somebody having to work to 70. I want them to start saving early. Create your own agenda by properly saving for the future. It's your agenda, not somebody else's. It's my agenda that I chose to retire in a week, right? So but I'm able to. I worked very hard for 34 years to have this independent action.
You can say what you were going to say.
Right. Say it.
We understand.
So
Safe
I just
space.
I just want to state, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's just focusing and knowing that you're paying yourself. When I was in my 20s, I never thought I'd be in my 50s. I never thought I would be as old as I am. But we all tend to age and grow, and the years go quick now, right?
Yes, they do.
So don't let time go by without taking care of yourself. And that's called creating your own agenda. It didn't matter how well I was doing in my current job. I had my own agenda, what I wanted to accomplish in my last 7 years of hard work, right? I didn't want to be in the grind in my last 7 years. I didn't want to be in survival mode in my last 7 years of good work. I wanted to be a community leader. I wanted to be a national figure. I wanted to make a difference. I want to save lives, okay? That's what I want to do in my last 7 years. I want to empower you to do the same thing if you want to do that. Reach your financial independence is done. The vast amount of Americans long-term saving and planning, okay? So what I tried to do today was go over the different indexes so you could know what you're investing in, right? When you reach retirement, you will be given the greatest gift of choice and pride. I have choice, I have pride. And it wasn't done easily. I had to bust. I had to work through challenges, and I had to deal with the type of managers we've all had to deal with in our lives, right? I had to overcome goals. I've had goals every year of my career that either I meet or I get written up, right? So that's the kind of pressure that you got to work through to get to where you want to be. It's not easy. It's not easy for anybody, okay? It's not easy for somebody starting their own business, is it?
No.
So it's hard, right? But it's worth it if you take care of yourself, okay? Because you're the most important person to you, right?
Right.
Invest in government paying a retirement office so that you can roll. So again, when you come out of the military, you can roll the retirement plan that the government issues. You can roll it, and you'll have the knowledge by the stuff I'm giving. When I'm going to talk to the National Guard, when I'm going to talk to the U.S. Army, I'm hoping that I give them the information so when they do transition out, they know what they're investing in when they talk to a rep. They're not just saying, here, rep, because I guarantee you, I don't want to talk about all reps, but generally they get paid based on the consistency of the account, right? So if you're investing in things that you're comfortable with, they could go like this, and that could affect their goals or whatever their interests are, right? So you have to have your own interests. do not think ever about cashing military occupational tax losses in retirement. Like, I just don't want them to cash in their thrifts for transition expenses. 59.5, one can withdraw from their 401k and top of them is based on the current tax rate. Okay, so whatever, and since I'm not going to have a salary, starting January 1st, my tax bracket might be different over the next few years. When I turn 59.5, I'm not going to get there soon, but I'll get there. And when I get there, I'll be taxed based on my income that I file and based on the funds that I pull out, the taxes will be based on that overall income that I have for that year, not what I'm making, through an employer. Okay, so it changes. So that's the benefit, because a lot of people don't need as much money when they reach 59.5 and they're starting to pull their full that they needed when they were working. Okay, because you don't have to buy maybe a new suit every year. A lot of the expenses of life go way down. You don't have to go out to fancy dinners and things to entertain, a boss or different colleagues, right? So the tax bracket will be lower when you're retired, and you're pulling that funds out, okay? And so you're going to be in a lot better position, okay? So these are things that I just wanted to go over. I sort of like this, don't you? so it sort of wraps it all up here. And so let me see what else I have. Do I have anything else? Your money is yours. Fighting another life all makes you prepared during life's challenges. We all are going to be challenged. There were times when I was almost fired because I wasn't making my goals, right? But I saved for the 6 months or whatever I had. Okay, so I was always preparing for life's challenges financially to make myself get peace of mind if something did bad happen. Okay, I once got really sick. I had a horrible allergy infection, right? And my boss at that time was sort of struggling with me, but thank God they finally figured it out and gave me Advil and not Advil. What is the Allegra and Zyrtec? Prescription strength twice a day, and it cleared up, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that life challenge really challenged me because it was very tough. Money gives you choice that we'll not have without planning. Money can be your shield during times of confusion, soul searching. And that's what I'm going through right now. I'm sort of soul searching about what I want to do in terms of the full element of my next mission, right? But I have the finances to make it softer in terms of my getting to where I want to be. If I didn't have it, I would be panicking, right? I'd be like one of the guys that takes the first job that's available and then needs another job 9 months later, right? I'm not in that position because I thought about it, okay? And you need to empower yourself to think about that too. Money will help you reach your potential too, but one must respect the investment takes time, but the rewards will lift you to new heights. Like I was saying, you can get to the highest heights you want to get. You can be inspirational to others if you take care of yourself first. People are inspired by people that are doing well, that take care of themselves, right? That are an example of what you can do over time, not an example of an immediate gratification situation such as winning the lottery or things like that. So I think this is sort of the lesson I wanted to do. Your money is yours. You're going to have to choose what to do with it. And I'm trying to just educate you on what you can do, okay? And let's see if I have anything else. So then that pretty much just brings the end. But again, I wanted to stress, the inspiration is yours. You can be as inspirational as you want to be as an individual, but you just have to work hard and take care of yourself and think about what is the best person that you can be based on your own personal potential and drive towards that. And drive towards that by financially being independent, financially being strong, financially knowing that you are a difference maker and you have the power and the money to get out there and make a difference and save people's lives. So that's what my mission is. I've done it for 11 years, and I have put myself in a position where I can financially do it for another 11 years. So I wanted to give that gift to all of you in terms of your knowledge, your determination, and what you can do for yourself. And so thank you very much. I appreciated everything you guys said.
Question.
Yes, there's questions.
When typically do you recommend that they adjust when they transition and they are now in retirement and they're living high on the hog like you will be?
I'm not living I'm glad I have the resources to help people continually. That's it.
Do you recommend that they adjust their investments? or some of them completely stop?
That's a good question. That's based on like how they've structured their portfolio going into retirement. Okay.
That is good.
That if you just had your 401k, if you just had your investment account, and you did not, I have a lot of secondary investments that I touch before I ever get to that 401k.
Right.
So my situation is different. But if you only had a 401k, and let's say it had $1 million in it, right? I would think that you would want to discuss the how to maximize the income of that towards your possible Social Security or pension that you're receiving. Okay, so the answer is not exactly. I can't give you advice of what to do, but I would definitely if all I had was my 401ks and IRA money that I was working on right now, I would definitely find advice in terms of how to maximize the earnings of that to help subsidize my Social Security. I'd probably still be working until I was 62, okay, because that's when you start receiving Social Security.
Right.
You know,
So-
but I had worked hard enough to have the, but yes, to answer your question, I would definitely have a discussion about that. But you want to think about working until you're 62 and up to, I guess, 70, is it 70 and a half, where you have to start taking your Social Security. You know, what year there you would want to do to subsidize that income. So you probably want to start talking again about 5 years before you retire about what the structure is, and then start working towards understanding what you have to do. And you can restructure your entire IRA money without penalty in that portfolio, just moving it around in terms of what you want.
Awesome.
If you're external, okay, if the investments aren't within an IRA structure, you have to pay taxes on the gains of each of these as you move them around. But most people invest outside of the IRA in order to cash in and use that money for expenses before they ever touch the IRA or the 401k IRA. Because the 401k becomes an IRA when you retire. And that's one question. Anybody have a question about any of the indexes or any structure?
I don't want to have all
No,
the
go
questions.
for it.
No, go ahead.
It helps with questions because this helps me when I go in front of the guard, when I go in front of the U.S. Army.
Do you know what the acronym NASDAQ stands for,
No.
or
I
Dow?
don't. We can Dow.
Alexa.
Yeah. I think that these are abbreviations of what they are, but we can look that up. But
Well, I
they're-
got the other one. He did have that one up there. The
Dow
Dow
Jones.
Jones
Dow Jones
Industrial one,
Average.
but the Dow itself, DOW, is there an acronym for that? That's what I was asking. DOW, does that mean something else? Is it Donnell
It is.
Orlando Johns?
No, it's just a name that
Okay.
came from the founders, from Charles Dow and
Oh,
Edward
his last
Jones,
name.
and that's
Okay.
their
Yeah,
last year.
I didn't go that deep. I wanted more of how it's structured and what they invested in.
Yeah, I just was wondering.
Yeah, but the Russell, like those Russells aren't talked about a lot, but there are a lot of investments in mid-caps that come.
NASDAQ, here you go. It's the National Association of Securities Dealers Automated Quotations. That is confusing.
Right. National
So we talked today about like all
Of
the
securities,
all the
dealers,
investments, and I
automated
wanted to bring somebody
quotations.
in that specializes in credit, so that people could have a clear understanding of how you improve your credit and how to keep a strong credit score.
Thank you.
So I invited Jerry here today. He's one of my colleagues. So he's gonna take over.
You gotta move that chair. Put it on, more on the road.
Hold it down.
Wasn't that amazing, y'all?
Yes.
That was amazing.
That's good information.
Who knew you'd have an exclusive today? David announcing his retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Did you know that?
I did.
You
You
did?
didn't know yet?
It's Dogo.
Yep. My name's Jerry Weeda. I work at the bank with David, and I excuse me. I work with credit a lot in my department. So, you want me to talk about credit and, you know, what it means, why it matters, and what it can provide, so. You know, your credit history impacts obviously loan approvals, and interest rates. You know, the lower the credit scores, the higher the interest rates. It could be meaning getting the loan, whether it's a mortgage, car loan, or what have you, or not. You know, it affects insurance, your rental application if you're renting a property, car insurance. Your rates will go up for that, depending on your credit score, or come down. And you know, financial stability, and especially in this area, even security clearances. You know, if you have bankruptcies, foreclosures, and things like that, it could be an issue for getting a security clearance, and then that's job security. So, let's see. Using credit wisely. Credit helps with major purchases, home, car, things like that, emergencies, and provides convenience. You know, using the credit card, but using it wisely. You know, trying, if you can, pay it off each month. You know, I think about it, you know, doing a lot of online purchases. You know, I'd rather, if my card's compromised, I'd rather have it be a credit card than my bank card.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it becomes a lot easier to spend too when you're using the card. It's so there's that as well, and that brings me to avoid overspending. You know, the interest and fees. You know, if you're not paying the credit card off each month, which, let's face it, most Americans are not. And you know, the higher the credit card balance, you know, that affects the credit score itself. But also you're paying a lot of interest, especially where interest rates are now, credit card rates, and then, you know, fees, if you, you know, late fees, and if you're using your bank card and you're not paying attention. So a lot of it is just kind of knowing what you have on your credit report, knowing your finances, knowing your limitations. You know, if you are using your bank card and you go over, you have overdraft fees, it just gets more expensive, you know, the more you're borrowing against it. Let's see, our responsibility. Warning signs of trouble. Next slide. Oh, my notes are not in line with that. Okay, credit report basics. So the basics of a credit report, it shows your balances, payment history. It also includes credit inquiries and negative items like late payments and things of that nature. And I actually didn't know you could check it weekly for free at annualcreditreport.com. You can get your annual credit report with the actual scores, but you can actually monitor it weekly. So, you know, and again, in this day and age, with a lot of information online and the risk that comes with that, if you see inquiries on there that you don't know about, and this is something David and I were talking about on the way here, I think we're going to add, you know, what to do in that case. You know, what do you do if you have a identity theft situation? Do you call the police? Do you call, you know? So a lot of folks, you know, including myself, if I hadn't looked into it, wouldn't know what to do. So we are going to add that information in the future as well. Next slide. Credit score factors. So these are the factors that impact your credit scores. Your payment history, that's the big one. You know, having clean payment history, making your payments on time each month, even if it's the minimum payment, that's going to be the most important thing with keeping, you know, your credit scores higher. Utilization, and that is regarding we mostly see that with revolving or credit cards. You know, you want to keep the credit limit at no more than 30% of whatever the maximum is on the credit card. So that's the next biggest. Length of credit history. You know, when you're first building your credit, you know, the credit scores are indicative of what is known and your usage of credit over time. So the less time you have with a credit card, your scores will build up each month, but they start out lower. And then the credit mix. So do you have an installment loan, which would be like a car loan, credit cards, and a mortgage? You know, I've talked to first-time home buyers, and they're like, I don't know why my scores just can't get over 680 or something like that. And then it's because either all they have is credit cards, or all they have is a car loan. And it's always, you know, and I talk to them and it makes sense. It's like I'm being penalized for not having credit cards or, you know, things like that. But unfortunately, the way the scores are, they have to have the history to calculate the scores. And then new credit. So if one thing that can actually hurt your scores initially when you apply for a new credit card, or even a new car loan. You know, I've seen where, you know, if I look at somebody's credit report within 30 days of them getting a car, and they had the dealer run their credit, well, they ran it with a bunch of different, you know, car finance companies, and I've seen scores that are 60, 70 points lower than they were before they got the car. But really what that is for is if you're applying for a bunch of different credit cards all at once, because that is a sign of somebody who's in panic mode, doesn't have funds for something, and is looking for credit to either cover other expenses and things like that. So it can be a sign of credit mismanagement, or just some credit emergency where that is indicative of a higher risk, and therefore the scores come down some for that.
I've never seen that breakdown. So
Yeah,
that's very valuable for people, because you know it's not just about paying your bills all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They look at all sorts of different factors in terms of your credit score.
I thought the utilization was 50%.
Mm-hmm.
But it also helps a percentage. Like, one of the questions the Marines were asking is, if I give my child a credit card, will that count the credit history? And now I can say that would affect 15% of their own.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. And now I'm like not sure. Let's go to the next slide. So I have two in here. One up here. Warning signs of trouble. Okay, that's where I was going to go with it. All right. So warning signs of trouble, which this is kind of what the credit report sees, and these things can impact your scores negatively and bring the credit scores down. Paying only the minimum payments, the balances are staying the same. That actually does impact, like the data is picked up on the credit report that only the minimum payments are being made, even if the balance on the card is at 50% or something. Balance is not shrinking. Near the credit limits, that's a big one. I know at times, like, you'll get the email from Capital One or whatever and says, hey, your credit score is down, 20%, and you notice that you use your card a lot more that month, and that's why. Stress about finances, using savings to pay debt. So these are more warning signs that you can recognize of trouble coming, which you probably already realize if you're stressing about it. But using savings to pay debt or applying for new credit cards frequently. So, when in an ideal situation, you pay off your credit cards each month, you're only using them as a convenience for gas or whatever it might be. And it fits into your monthly budget based on your income, so you can pay it off monthly. When you're using your savings to pay that off and supplement paying off that, which should be monthly debt, it's a warning sign. You need to dig into what you're spending and kind of do a budget meeting with yourself. That should bring us to healthy budget guidelines. And this is based on your net income. Housing, it used to be the guidance, the overall guidance, used to be 25%, and it's over the last 5 years I've seen it in these are, economists' recommendations and, industry thought on this. It's increased to 35% and affordability has gone down. Everything's more expensive now. So you look at 25% of your net income, and if it's not realistic to cover, housing, so that has been adjusted to something I noticed to 35%. And unsecured debt, which would be your credit card debt, things like that, which should be used, like I said, at grocery store, gas, things like that in your budget. Transportation, your car, and if you're not using car, whatever you spend on metro and things like that. Ideally, if you could put 10% or more into savings each month, and then other expenses, insurance, cell phones, things like that. That's the ideal picture for a budget. Building strong credit, big one, pay on time. Like I said, even if it's the minimum payment, if you have a 30-day late payment on your credit, once that's reported, the initial impact can be up to 60 points on your credit score. So if you had a 680, it could knock it down to a 620. And that's the immediate impact. Each month further away from that 30-day late payment, your scores will come up each and every month. But initially, it's a big impact. Keeping balances low, ideally below 30% of whatever the limit is. Limit applications, that's big this time of year. Store credit, or if you open a card, you'll get $200 off of this order. All that stuff, that impacts your credit. In addition, it's hard to manage too. I mean, I've seen some credit reports with literally like 35 credit cards. I mean, you have to have a spreadsheet just to make sure you're making all your payments. And monitor your reports regularly. Like I said, I didn't even know you could pull it at no cost weekly to monitor it. So it's just the due diligence, the desire to know what you're spending and know your financial picture. And the final takeaway, using credit as a tool, use it wisely to strengthen your financial picture. And one other for credit reports, what I also did after I sent David the slides for this portion of our presentation, I thought, and I did create it if anybody wants a copy of it. But one thing I didn't really touch on is if you're already in the position where your budget's not within those windows, or you're looking at your credit card debt and it's way more than what you're comfortable with, how do you dig out of that? And how do you repair credit that's already taken a hit, or if you have a kid or a family member, something like that. I did write up and print up all the instructions on what to look at, how to zero in on what to pay down first and when, and all that stuff. So I kind of wrote that all out, and I do have that as well. So, all right. Does anybody have any questions?
Why you look at me?
I
Yes,
have one. When you talk about managing personal credit, right?
Mhm.
And what do you think about like infinite banking?
Infinite.
Have you heard of that concept?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
What is that?
I'm not an expert.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
just
the IUL.
no.
No.
That's a tool.
Yeah.
It's not the only one. So they one of the recent things I just heard is that you leverage your home equity
Mm-hmm.
as not as a loan, but as a line of credit,
Mm-hmm.
and you make that your
I've heard of that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically,
yes.
any debt that
They
you
got two
have,
different
you basically clear everything out, put it on that line of credit, and your paycheck essentially goes to that line of credit, and you use the line of credit for all your expenses each month. And and over time, as your paycheck goes with, it goes down to zero on that line of credit, and to build wealth using that. So then you have a house that's free and clear, and then your paycheck goes.
Does that make sense? So,
I
like
think
if you
so.
had a 200,000, you had your paychecks and there were the total 5,000, but your bills were only 3,000, 2,000 would go toward the equity, and it would go down, so you're building the equity of the property faster than you would if you were just paying a monthly mortgage.
Yep.
So,
I mean, that's another thing that takes a lot of discipline, because you have, you have a line of credit with thousands and thousands of dollars on it. I mean, you have your monthly expenses, you have a credit card attached to that line of credit. Just like anything else, it just takes discipline. So it can be done, it can be useful. Yeah, I've heard of that. I hadn't heard that name before, infinite
Okay.
banking.
I just wanted to, that was great.
I
Thank
see
you.
it. Life insurance.
I just wanted to, and I forgot to say one thing, thank you.
Yep.
But, with regards to investing, okay? And one thing that, Danielle got when he, joined the United States Army was a pension, correct? And so, do they offer pensions any longer, similar to what you get for somebody just joining the Army?
So what they have now is
Blended
called
retirement.
blended retirement. And with that blended retirement, a portion of that money goes into the thrift savings plan, and then they get a portion of it at the end when they retire. So they don't get as much with
And they match.
they match with what you put in there. So if you
Up
put in,
to 5%.
yeah.
Up to 5%, yes.
And do they have any kind of pension?
There's still a pension.
No, that is
There's
their
still pension.
pension.
That is their pension?
No,
Yeah.
you still get a pension. It's reduced. It's 40%.
They have a reduced pension.
It's 40% now?
That's what it is.
So they will get,
Yeah, a lot of people think it's been taken away, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good to know that it isn't totally taken away. But the pension plans in life that our parents had,
Right, are
Right.
starting to go away.
most of those have gone away. So what is everybody investing in every 2 weeks? What are they investing? They're investing in their 401k, right?
Mhm.
And what is the 401k, what I put up on the screen? What are they investing
In the stock
in the
market.
stock market?
Right.
So that was not like when my dad and my mother and everyone else was growing up. The stock
Right.
market was something that the elite would invest in, right?
Right.
So now everybody's investing in it throughout the nation. And what does that accumulate? Accumulates a tremendous amount of cash every 2 weeks that they gotta invest in sooner or later, right? So a lot of the fluctuations you see are based on triggers that are created through AI and other programs. You know, with the word tariff is said, right? It's gonna trigger AI and there's gonna be a sell down based on those type of triggers, right?
Right.
But what is happening that never happened in our parents and in 1920 and all the other years is that consistent funding. And it really started a long time ago, but you know, how did we get out of 2008? Regardless of the crash and everything, I was still putting money away at my age, right? I think in my 30s at the time, I was just putting money away, right? So people are always putting money into this machine, okay? And so that should give you some comfort in terms of the long-term benefit. There will be a bubble, something will happen, that there will be another crash of 30, 40% or 20 to 30%. Something's gonna happen, right? But with the continual investing that everyone is doing now, and it's there, we don't have the options anymore. I can't get into a pension plan,
Right.
you know? So just think about that when you're investing as well, in terms of, as a nation, we're all in this together as a nation. It is the only thing, outside of cash, outside of investing in a bank up to $250,000 FDIC insurance, outside of that, you know, we all are trying to accumulate wealth pretty much the same way. And then we're trying to get to that point of financial independence all the same way. It's just you have to participate. If you don't participate, you're not going to be part of that culture of all those people investing every single 2 weeks or every twice a month or every week, however they get paid. Okay, so just think about that in terms of what is your tolerance level, in terms of the long-term gains that you're looking for. Okay. I just want to bring that up because it's really important, Because we don't live in our parents' world. We don't live in our brother's world, you know, or Danielle's world, right? So we don't live there. We don't. So we have to think differently. We have to think how we are living. So I do want to, that was something I forgot to say at the end. So I just wanted to throw that. Because I think it's important to think about.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
So again, I want to thank David and Jerry for coming out. This is highly important, right? The reason why some of you have gotten into business is because you want to make some money, right? We go into business to make money, and then it's also good to make money off of things that we're passionate about. And through knowledge, through community, through partnerships, through education, you can win. And that's what we want to provide here at Veterans Growing America. All of the things, because it's impossible to know it all. You know, like David, he did some research to find this information out, and he's still constantly learning because he's going to update his slides based off of the information and the questions that you guys asked him. And then hopefully you guys got some fantastic information to move forward in life and go, okay, let me look at this S&P 500 or this Russell 400. I just learned about that.
Russell 2000. And there's a Russell 1000.
Oh, really?
There's a
didn't know
Russell
anything.
400.
These are things that we got to learn about and do our research on, but being exposed to it is highly important. And us collectively learning these things and, you know, sharing this information with our kids. My son is there in the back, you know, he just commissioned as a lieutenant, and so now he's a second lieutenant, and he gets the thrift savings plan, all of these other things that now he can utilize for his family and invest in and move forward in. But these are just opportunities that we have right here in front of us that we may not know about. So thank you, gentlemen, for sharing this information. We thoroughly appreciate it.
Thank you, Brad.
Awesome. Awesome. It was still